Hello, my friends! How to use and how to maintain such wonderful old school tools for drawing with ink. I will tell you in this episode of Artistic Workout. The pen needs to be clean at all times. You dip it in ink. Oh, that's graphite. Like this. Or you have an eyedropper. It is important for this to be flat. You don't want to have too much ink because I observed that if you have a bubble here, you will have a splash on your paper. The quality of paper is also important. My adventure with pen and ink drawing started when I turned 8. Before that time I would always look at my father who would draw with these tools, but I was prohibited. And my father is a physicist slash programmer. Okay, don't use the round tip. Why? Because it's used for calligraphy. So anyway, my father is a physicist slash programmer, but he has hobbies like drawing and playing guitar. There are different kinds of inks, as you can see. This one is probably I picked up an acrylic ink, a new kind of ink. And yes, keep that pen clean, because if you don't, you will struggle with the ink not flowing down onto the paper. And here I will doing cross-hatching. So you need to put these lines in a nice, neat order. And spacing, it's an acquired skill. Takes some practice to twist your hand in various directions. And as you notice, there are how many? 6. No, not 6. 4 directions. Okay, a very important thing, if you put ink on the pen, either with an eyedropper or you dip it, make sure that there is no no blob, I think that's the word. No blob, because if you have a blob, then it will eventually, this bubble will burst, and it's unfortunate what it will do to your drawing. You will have a stain. So it took me months or years to realize that I don't want to have this bubble. The ink has to be flat on the pen. And here I'm presenting different kinds of lines, as well as how to do shading. That is sort of a gradient without the tool that lets us have different variants of gray, because we only have black. But with the right spacing between the lines, we can sort of emulate gray, not pure black. That's what it would look like if we look at it from a distance, obviously. And what I'm doing here, keeping that clean. Perhaps the paper tissue is not the best. Perhaps the cloth would be better. And here, this one, this little guy, this is finer, for finer lines, and it's not as responsive to pressure as the first one. So the first one, if you put more pressure, the line becomes wider. So you can go through various widths, thicknesses, pardon my pronunciation, with a fine little one like this one. You don't have that much really of variation in the thickness of lines, and the lines themselves are much finer, thinner that is, than from the other pen. So this is a little demonstration. That's what it looks like. The quality of the paper matters. This paper is okay, is good enough. It doesn't tear into little pieces that would clog your pen, but it's a paper for sketching, and it's pretty thin. Might be bending and it's not very comfortable. What I'm doing here is another type of hatching, is going with the round lines that sort of wrap around the form. I remember in my art history class, which art history classes at Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle were very good actually. We were shown many slides, and one of the slides was of Albrecht Dürer, who was a painter and a graphic artist from the Renaissance. So the slide showed Riders of Apocalypse, and the teacher was showing us how the lines in that etching, I believe it was etching, wrap around the form. So what I'm doing right now here, I'm attempting to do a shading on a sphere in a very quick manner, very sketchy, so there's not much of gradient or gray changes within the value. But this basicality of what I'm doing is actually useful to see, is important, because with these not many lines, this limited amount of lines, you can actually see that bending them on the sphere and previously on the cylinder makes our perception better, helps us to perceive the curvature. Okay, another piece of paper, a little one. I found it somewhere, and it's actually dedicated more towards markers, but ink also. So I'm doing this thing with drawing with the leaf. Again, cleaning carefully the pen. So with the leaf, I will just start it. In this case, the line drawing, the contour drawing is important. I don't know how else to do it, how to achieve it. Okay, this is a little happy accident, or not so happy accident. But not a tragedy. I can work with that, work around it. So the line drawing here. Pens are why are they such a wonderful tool? Because they are limited. They produce little errors. You have to be creative to work with these imperfections of the tools. So I would say that each tool has its imperfections and its strengths. And they can be used in a creative way. They can add something to your skills and to your particular drawings. A tool doesn't have to be perfect to make create interesting results. Sometimes on the contrary. Aside from pens, you could use the ink also with something that is called a stick, or with a brush and water to produce something between painting and drawing, and to operate with the grays, with the shadows. Okay, so I'm leaving the leaf. When I was in high school, I was struggling with drawing of the leaf with a ball pen and a pen, and for inspiration I looked at some drawings of flowers and leaves by Leonardo da Vinci, because it's kind of hard to do softness with such a hard tool. And I didn't know what to draw, to tell you the truth. For this episode, I was researching different things, like what should I start with for the introduction to pen and ink drawing. And one of the things that I found that I thought I could do is the little mannequin. Wooden mannequin. I will attempt to draw it without the pencil under drawing, so the pencil sketch. There is no under drawing, it's not underwear. Okay, I'm making up words in English as I go along. But I'm not the only person to do it. There are some people who do it betterly, than I do. Okay. Betterly is not a word. So, yes, I could do it with a pencil, and you can do it too, and then go to ink. I decided to go with the ink, although that is kind of advanced. Look how I'm pretty careful with the line and proportion. So what looks like there are some stops, and in these stops I'm eyeballing the head of the mannequin. I'm looking, okay, is it like this? Okay. So I'm slow because I want to be careful with the shapes and the proportions. The camera is looking and it's like, oh my god, So, line drawing again, and I cannot stress enough how practicing contour drawing is important. And I'm not the first one to be saying that. There was a classicist painter by the name of Ingres, and he was all about line drawing. So if you look at Ingres, Ingres, which I mentioned in previous episodes many times, probably many times, his drawings were mostly about line with some strategically placed little shadows. What am I doing here? I'm hatching. I will be cross hatching, and I also use these round lines that go around the form. To help with the perception, spatial perception. I'm building the form with these round lines. And another thing that this type of drawing can do, is used for, is to emulate. Okay, I'm taking a picture of the mannequin. Is to emulate textures. So this mannequin has a bit of a texture of wood, which should be added to the drawing. How does one do it? The lines on the wood, they are little short pieces. On this kind of wood. Okay, if you're actually taking drawing a wooden floor, beams, they would have long lines, diverse patterns. The lines would bend and so on, but this one just short, little short lines would do the trick, would show that this is the wood. So yes, you emulate the textures. See, okay, I'm doing that here because I want to show that this is wood. It's a bit of a practical problem. How, with this limited amount of means, to create different textures? And you struggle with it, or you borrow from other artists in pen and ink drawing. But this sort of problem has to find its solution also in graphic arts, like etching, woodcut, lino cut, dry point, and other techniques which I know very little about because I never tried them. How could that be? I don't know. I mean, I know that graphic arts are something very important, big, diverse, with a lot of tradition, a lot of power, lot of possibilities, lot of opportunities. But I tried other things. So in case of pen and ink drawing, I've been doing that for a few years as a child, extensively. So I'll use either pencil or pen and ink. And then I would also use fine liners and tools like that. Once you get pretty good at it, it is pleasant. It provides some sort of a sensation different from those new modern tools like fine liners. Yes, perhaps also because the thickness of the lines varies, that there are some imperfections. It reacts to pressure. Like if you put more pressure, the line becomes wider, and so on. So it's quite a different experience from fine liners or markers, although I use both. Sometimes I would combine them when I do things like comic strip illustration, although I'm mainly a painter actually. But I have some jobs, some tasks where I go back to what I was doing as a child in a way, and I draw comic strips. Okay, so I'm pretty slow here. 0. Slowly building it. Making a build up. Okay, what was I doing here? I was looking at the direction, transferring direction of the upper part of the leg, the thigh, because it sticks out in a certain way, in a certain direction, at a certain angle, and you want to know, I wanted to know what the angle was. Putting the ink on the pen in such a way that it doesn't create a bubble, as I said. And again, that's the beauty or the harshness of the technique. It's ink thirsty. You have to keep refueling your tool. Okay, you can use some dots as well, not only solid lines, or you can start with the dots. Dots are wonderful, dots are great. I love dots. I don't like dots. I love dots. Now I like dots because you put a few dots, you know where you are and where to put a line as a result of that. And notice how in this drawing and other drawings, if you draw with pencil, you would like to do the same thing actually. You start from a pretty low contrast, low value, and you build it up as you go along. Yeah, so you don't want to make your drawing very dark at first. You don't need it. You will apply more contrast as you go along, and if you start from low contrast, you have much more flexibility to adjust the contrast in the process, to put the shadow in the right places, or put more shadow, more value in the right places. Where should it be? I mean, the value, the highest values, the darkest values should be obviously where there's where there are the darkest values on whatever that it is that you're drawing. But that's not the only thing. You use the shadows that are more important for creating that 3D look that we go for at least since the Renaissance. So some shadows define form more than the others. Okay. Round forms here, rounded. I'm using rounded lines. They help with the perception. Okay. And now I'm looking at what direction is the lower part of the arm. What are the directions, spatial relations, and if you're interested in that, you can look at the episode 10 or 11, Drawing of Mannequins, I think it's called, which I did last year. And this mannequin is also there. The drawing is a pencil drawing, and I show it in a nice way. I mean, you have a first person perspective, and I also used some lines to go along with it, like appearing on the screen. There are some lines that show the axis and the construction of the different parts of this mannequin. Okay, and I think there was a little bit of an accident, like as I said, the tool is sometimes hard to control. That's the beauty of it, I think. So some happy accidents happen, as Bob Ross, the late Bob Ross, would say about painting. So here also, that's the thing about these old analog tools, that they sometimes don't play by the predictable rules. And you don't have an undo button. So still at this stage of our development, it teaches you to draw more than a tablet where you can hit undo. And I have nothing against tablets. I use them also, but I had many students, and in some students I noticed that when they were just using tablets before becoming my students, they would then later struggle with drawing on paper and with drawing in general. So they had to learn to draw on paper, and I still recommend it, drawing on paper, using different tools. Pencil is very important, but as you see, you can learn something from tools that have their limitations, features, quirks, and so on. It opens up your imagination, sensitivity. You become careful, and then you can take all these new skills to digital drawing and painting. As I said, there's nothing wrong with digital drawing and painting, but I would say do a little bit of both. And sketch a lot. Sketch a lot because when you sketch and you draw a lot, then your whatever is that you're doing, either you're a digital artist or a digital painter, or a painter like you paint on canvases, the drawing that you practiced is there, and then it becomes fluent, natural, fast, and makes you become more spontaneous. Yeah, I'm digressing a little bit, but I think it's important. Actually, in painting, painting fast is different than painting slow. Applying paint fast creates this sort of gesture that cannot be done in slow-paced painting, and fast painting is much better when you have the skill. So you can focus on other things. Okay, so I'm line drawing again. Okay. I actually made a little bit of an. Okay, that forearm looks a bit twisted. So surprise. I didn't do an ideal job with that forearm, but other things are pretty okay. And I've been drawing this mannequin a lot, showing it to students, demonstrating and so on. But I think perhaps it's the first time I do it with pen and ink. Okay, so these lines kind of, again, emulating the wood texture. I might actually leave this part of drawing sort of unfinished, sort of more of a line drawing. Sometimes it looks better if you do that, or maybe just apply a little bit, an indication of form, an indication of shadow. Besides, pure line drawings without any value in shadow also look wonderful. Okay, cleaning that tool again. And I think I'm done, and then I have to go to the university to teach or whatever. So this is my little demonstration, perhaps the introduction to pen and ink drawing. I can do other subjects as well in the future. I hope it was useful, and you'll see, maybe I should have spent more time drawing the leaf, or I should do it later on. Leaf is difficult because it's a soft thing and you have hard lines, and also requires more time probably than drawing a stick figure. Yeah. So get your pens and ink and start drawing. I mean, I had so much fun doing that, really. I hope you do too, after initial problems with that wonderful medium. Thank you for watching. If you liked this episode, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, share with others. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot once again, and have a good day or evening or night. Bye bye.